The four questions to consider, and then one really important mantra to remember is I think we want to think today and in community as we continue in this work, how do we empower our research, right? I thought about turbocharge, but I really like the word empower our research. How do we empower the communities that we are a part of, right? Because again, this is not those out there who are experiencing this. This is us. We are experiencing this, right? And we're experiencing it, yes, as academics or yes, as people who do research, but we're also experiencing it as human beings in our bodies, right? Experiencing this moment where our bodies are being delegitimized. Our bodies are very much trying to get erased. They're trying to erase us, for lack of a better way of saying it. Third question is, how do we empower the communities we stand in solidarity with but are not a part of? And then the fourth question is, how do we empower ourselves, right? So we can think of ourselves as parts of a community, but also we are individuals, right? With our own set of needs and positionalities that we really want to take into account. The mantra I think we need to repeat and to, make sure that we really internalize and embrace is that we cannot answer all four of those questions simultaneously for a sustained period of time. We are going to have to individually and communally start to think about, where can I do one of those questions or two of those questions for a period of time? And where can I trust and engage with others to work on the other questions that I'm not at a bandwidth where I can do all of them, right? And I think this is true as a matter of self-care, but also as a matter of communal care, right? Because we've all been stretched thin and we're all going through a trauma. And so I think we want to think about the fact that we cannot do it all, as if we ever could, but we especially cannot do it all and expect to survive and thrive. And I think part of this is about survival and thrival as a mechanism for resistance, as much as it is, personal triumph or, wanting to be whoever we've aspired to be in our lives, to everybody that's in our lives. So how do we deal with this? I think we build community at a level of profound humanity. And I mean by profound humanity, we do that community building offline, especially. And I don't mean that just for the purposes of we hate technology. I'm as addicted to technology as anyone. But I think, part of responding and resisting dehumanization is to rehumanize, right? And so we rehumanize as a form of resistance, and we do that in person, in community with each other. So we do want to leverage the power of technology. And so I'm really informed here by a lot of the critical disability study literature, right? And making sure that we're using technology as a way to support those who are isolated or unable to connect in person for whatever reason, right? And that can, of course, be temporal. Nobody wants to connect with somebody who may have, COVID, for example, right? So we want to leverage their ability to connect and be part of the community. But also, this may be a much more long-term kind of thing, right? If you think about certain kinds of chronic things that folks might be contending with or dealing with. We also can think about that geographically, right? I know at least, again, being informed by the work that I've done in LGBTQ plus communities, right? Not everyone is located in an urban center or a college campus where it is quote unquote easy to be a member of that community, right? And so again, you can leverage technology as an important kind of intervention in all kinds of things, anything from, unaliving to a whole host of other kinds of interventions. So last and finally, and I know I've said that 4 times, but this is truly the last thing. We participate in community by also participating in communal self-care. And so I think, to some of the quote unquote, house rules of today's conversation and moving forward, we will not all find the same self-care practices restorative. But I do think we can think about a different kind of rest beyond just physical or psychological rest. And so there's a book by Sandra Dalton Smith called Sacred Rest, which is a spiritual book as much as it is a medical book. But she talks about several different kinds of rest. So I'm just going to list those. Um, and the kinds she talks about are physical, emotional, spiritual, creative, interpersonal or social rest. And that can be for introverts and extroverts alike, right? Not just introverts need social rest, um, and mental rest. And so mental being different from emotional because it's more about intellectual rest, right? Like resting your brain from the number of decisions that you have to make in a day, right? Or giving yourself the intellectual rest of being able to read for pleasure as opposed to read for research or read for understanding what's going on in the world, right? And so I think those are the kinds of things that are part of that mental or intellectual rest.